let's turn to the downfall. Should we start with Neil Haywood, Chris? Who is he and how did he get mixed up in all of this?
The best and maybe the only way I can sort of begin to explain what happened in 2012 and what it was like is to go back and just piece together what the events were that began to crack open what was happening in Chongqing at the time. Uh, because although the Chinese political system was more open then, it's still very secretive. And what happened in Chongqing only broke out in these extraordinary episodes. And therefore, the role of Neil Haywood and his death only came out in fits and starts over a few months. So we go back to early 2012 on February 6th. That's when the world begins to get the first inkling that something is drastically amiss in Chongqing. Because that's over that day and the day after, I think, that's when the news begins to emerge that Wang Lijun, until very recently the high-profile police chief of Chongqing, had fled to the United States consulate in nearby Chengdu city. And he was holed up inside the consulate, hoping to escape to the United States and claim asylum. And that news, like a lot of the news that came out of Chongqing subsequently, came out in this sort of mystifying rumors that at first seemed too incredible to be true, then turned out to be largely true, and then opened up even more questions about what was happening in Chongqing. And so Wang Lijun flees into the embassy, and then there are negotiations happen that ultimately lead to him leaving, the consulate, that lead to him leaving the consulate and putting himself in the hands of police officials, state security officials from Beijing. And at that point, I don't think anybody, perhaps only a very few people, had any idea that this was all related to the death, as it turned out, the murder of Neil Haywood, a British businessman who'd been working in various capacities for the Xilai family, and particularly for Xilai's wife, Gu Kailai, ever since they were in Liaoning province in Dalian. So unlike other journalists, I didn't know Neil Haywood at all when he was in Beijing, but he was this well-educated, private school educated Englishman who had set himself up in Beijing as a consultant. And he drove around town in a Jaguar. He consulted for a number of large companies, especially British companies. But it also turned out that he had close relations with the Xilai family as well, and acted as, it seems, as a kind of agent for them, somebody who helped them to, for example, it seems, getting their son Bo Guagua into the right schools in Britain, and helping out with their business needs as well. So he was a foreigner who was acting as a sort of a fairly low-level fixer for the Bo Xilai family. Until Wang Lijun fled to the U.S. consulate in Chengdu, none of that was known. And in my memory, what we began to know about Neil Haywood's role only came out in these sort of mystifying rumors and hints, bit by bit. And when the rumors started to come out that he'd actually been poisoned by, some people said by Bo Xilai, some people said by Gu Kailai, it seemed so extraordinary that it was one of those rumors that you thought, oh, that can't be true. China's just so awash with rumors these days. This is just another crazy story from the rumor mill. So I remember sort of beginning to get involved in the reporting of all of this back then, and listening to these stories that people were sharing, including people in Chongqing, with a sort of air of sort of that naive incredulity that foreigners can sometimes bring to these things. And so we only began to learn about Neil Haywood's death in fits and starts, as I said. And It was only during those dramatic months of February, March into the National People's Congress, and subsequently that the full picture began to emerge.